Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is Two-Way Tonight, and I'm Mark Halperin, your roving correspondent. I appreciate you joining us here on Friday night for a special edition. All the editions are special, so maybe there's an extra special edition of Two-Way Tonight. We will examine in some depth the implications for 2028, the presidential campaign, for what's going on in the Middle East now, because, of course, we can figure that out. It's only like 3 years away. I need y'all to make a promise to me. So if you're willing to make a promise to me, please raise your hand. Just raise your regular hand if you're here. Raise your hand if you're willing to make a promise. Thank you, Alan's got a good example. Raise your hand. I'm going to tell you something about the news today. If you got a promise, you're not going to log off. Everybody agree? Not much happened today, which is good because we have great guests here to do our semi-regular panel to talk about 2028. So I'm going to tell you what happened today, but I'm a spoiler alert. Not much happened because there was no bombing by the United States. Not much happened in Geneva. And Donald Trump talked on the tarmac. And when we play the sound from Donald Trump, you're going to say, well, Mark, you're playing sound from earlier in the week because we've heard Donald Trump say all these things because he didn't really say anything new on his way to New Jersey. So I'll tell you what little developments there are. Most of them have to do with incremental non-developments related to Israel and Iran. A few things on immigration, and then we'll get to our guests. And our guests tonight are spectacular. Alex Castellanos, Republican strategist, Nomi Konst, Democratic strategist, Jonathan Allen, premier chronicler of all things American politics, and a fellow go by the name of Dan Turrentine is here with us tonight. We'll talk about 2028, as I said, in the context of this new developments in the Middle East. So welcome in. If you'd like to be part of the conversation and the equivalent of winning the Irish lottery, a chance to ask Alex Castellanos a question, please, if you're here on the Two-Way platform, raise your hand, raise your electronic hand, and you may well get a chance to ask Alex a question. I've had a chance to ask Alex a question in my lifetime, and it's right up there with the birth of my child. It's just spectacular. And then if you're watching on, I did not drink on the flight. I'm just giddy with excitement. If you're watching on YouTube or X, please don't raise your hand. And don't say it with me now, loud and proud, put smack in the chat. We had a meeting here today at Two-Way, and we talked about smack in the chat. And I can tell you, it turns out some of my colleagues read the chat. So stop it. Write things in there, spirited, principled, dynamic, even critical, but please no personal negative attacks or salty, spicy language that a Supreme Court justice would know it when she saw it. And smack in the chat. Don't do that. Here's a headline from the Wall Street Journal, number 1. It says what you need to know about the Iranian posture, both in Geneva and elsewhere. Iran remains defiant as pressure builds to end enrichment. And here's another headline, 1B from the Washington Post. Europeans press Iran on nuclear curbs, but Geneva talks yield no breakthrough. All right. So in the context of nothing happening in Geneva and Iran continuing to be defiant, Donald Trump talked up a semi-blue streak on the tarmac as he headed to New Jersey for a MAGA fundraiser. Here is President Trump talking about what would happen if Iran struck the United States. Number 2, please.
There is an attack on U.S. assets. Will you promise to conduct a full investigation and make it transparent with the American people before blaming Iran for such an attack?
Well, if there's an attack, we'll know almost immediately with modern equipment who made the attack, and those people will be very, very unhappy.
Prime Minister,
I want to get you people out of danger. You're in danger standing with me.
That was a little bit of a convoluted question. I once asked a president of the United States a question so convoluted that it was mocked on Comedy Central. And I learned from that experience, try to keep your questions to the president short and simple. All right, here's the president again talking about now what has become one of history's most famous fortnights. This is number 5, please.
Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
All right, and here's the president suggesting that he believes that Europe's effectiveness is on par with DNC Chair Ken Martin. This is number 6, please.
The thought process behind 2-week timetable.
Just a time to see whether or not people come to their senses. That's all it is.
Did the Europeans help at all in talking speaking with the Iranians?
No, they didn't help. No.
20.
Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this.
All right. Now there's a subplot going on. We talked the other day to a great expert who pointed out it really doesn't matter from Israel's point of view how close Iran is to building a nuclear weapon, as intelligence experts disagree on that point, because Israel's using this moment to destroy their program, regardless whether they're on the 15-yard line, the 1-yard line, or whatever pigskin metaphor, gridiron metaphor you want to use. This subplot involves the president and his head of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Here is the president, number 3, please, asked about reports that Tulsi Gabbard has been less concerned in her evaluation of the status of the Iranian nuclear program. This is number 3, please.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Eek, a little harsh. Well, Tulsi Gabbard trying to maybe lower the temperature a little bit. Here's a tweet from the aforementioned director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Do we have that? I'm looking for the number here. Yeah, number 4B, please. Tulsi Gabbard, just shortly before we went on the air, took to the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of context and spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks to months. If they decide to finalize the assembly, President Trump has been clear that can't happen, and I agree. Her testimony was a little bit mischaracterized, but she also made a video that the president said not to have loved, and we'll see what happens between the two of them. But the point is, from the president's policymaking point of view, certainly from the policymaking point of view of the Iranians, doesn't matter whether they could make a nuclear bomb tomorrow or whether they could make one in the summer or in the fall. Israel says this is the time to eliminate the program. And we've talked at some length here about why Israel has that point of view. I won't revisit it. Now, we have so little understanding of what's happening in Iran. I'd love to do a focus group of maybe some Tehran suburban housewives to understand how they feel. I'd like to see some Survey Monkey polls to understand how they feel. This is seeing through a glass totally darkly. I wouldn't even say opaque, because opaque means you can see a little bit in. You can't see anything. What are the Iranian people thinking about all this? We do not know. In part, we don't know because there's not very much American or Western media reporting out of Tehran. It's being covered from other countries. I will say this about CNN, which is, despite all the difficulties they have covering American politics, and despite the cutbacks there, they still have a worldwide presence that is unmatched by very many organizations, particularly on the video side. Maybe the BBC is about the only one. CNN's correspondent, Frederick, how do you pronounce his name? Pleitge? How do you pronounce his name? I don't know. But there is a CNN correspondent who's the first Western correspondent inside Iran since the hostilities began. And here's a bit of his package. This is number 7 from inside Iran.
Sorry, which one?
Number 7, please.
Administration as well. Many of them were chanting death to America, were chanting death to Israel. We saw them burn American flags and burn Israeli flags.
You will punch the United States and Israel in the mouth, he says. Trump, you are threatening my leader, this woman says. Don't you know my nation believes death is sweeter than honey? What do you have, Israel? He says. You have nothing. You are occupiers, unreligious. You're killing people, killing women. You kill everyone. You're terrorists.
So you can see that anger here being voiced by many of the folks who are walking here in this protest, whereas the Iranian government has said that as long as the Israelis continue their bombing campaign of sites here in Iran, there will be Iranian missiles flying towards Israeli territory. They're calling on President Trump to try and end this direct confrontation. Otherwise, they say, there could be a direct military confrontation between Iran and the United States. The Iranians say it's not something they want, but they also say it's something that they're ready for. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Tehran.
All right. I learned
thanks
so
to
much
Fred
from that
Pleitgen
piece.
for that story.
Yeah. Thank you, Fred Pleitgen. I learned so much from that piece, including that one lady, big fan of Van Morrison, who I believe was the first one to sing the lyric, "Death is sweeter than Tupelo honey." There's a viewer of this program who mocks me for getting song lyrics incorrect. And like this viewer's exacting, if I get like one word wrong of a Cheap Trick lyric, they go bananas and send me like a 10 line email about how wrong it was. Van Morrison, I purposely misquoted the line. Please don't send me an email about it. That was an incredible piece. Congratulations to that guy for getting in there. I don't know if I worked for a legacy news organization and they wanted to send me to Tehran. I got to be honest, not sure I'd get. In any event, other news today mostly relates to immigration. Jerry Nadler, gentleman from New York, my congressperson today, this is number 9, Sam, raised a point Democrats are making regularly now, which they don't mind if protesters wear masks, but they don't think ICE agents should wear masks. Here's Jerry Nadler, number 9.
These people are wearing masks and are totally unidentified, and the question is why. The question is why. It's completely improper, and again, one has to assume they're hiding something or they're hiding misbehavior, because otherwise, why would they be wearing masks and denying their identities?
Well, because they say they don't want their families to be doxxed. Is what they say the reason is. It's a little weird to me, but number 10, Muhammad Khalil, pro-Hamas Columbia graduate student who's been front and center on these questions of administration policy, was ordered released by a judge. Now, I don't know, Michael, has he been released yet? I don't know if he's been released, but he was ordered released. That would be interesting if he were released. Number 11, a judge blocked the president's attempt to bar international students from attending Harvard. Horse has left the barn a little bit on that. We'll see what happens there. President Trump today, about Harvard on Truth Social, said this, number 12. Many people have been asking, one of my favorite Trump constructions, many people have been asking what is going on with Harvard University, and there are large-scale improprieties that we have been addressing, looking for a solution. We've been working closely with Harvard, and it's very possible that a deal will be announced over the next week or so. They have acted extremely appropriately during these negotiations and appear to be committed to doing what is right. If a settlement is made on the basis that is currently being discussed, it will be mind-bogglingly historic and very good for our country. Thank you for attention to this matter. Don't take this down yet, Sam. I have to say, beyond interesting that the president's praising Harvard there, is I worry that someday my son will ask me about the rules of spelling, capitalization, and the use of quotation marks. And he will look to President Trump, the leader of the United States, elected by the people, and ask me how it could be that the president capitalizes certain words. And I don't know what I'm going to say. I really don't. Finally, we talked the other day about why the president was having lunch with I think it was the chief of staff of the Army of Pakistan. Couldn't figure out how'd that guy get on his schedule. Well, we got a great email from one of you explaining why, but this explains it more. Number 13, today, Pakistan nominated Donald J. Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. So maybe that had something to do with it. All right, in just a moment, our great guests will be here, but now it is time for me to remind you that this program is sponsored by Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth is a maker of clothes that are great year-round, but particularly fantabulous in the summer. Made from viscose from bamboo, their clothing and their bedwear and sheets naturally wick away heat and moisture when it is hot outside. I am currently not perspiring because it happens to be somewhat cool where I am, but you should have seen me earlier today. Haley would call it schwitzing. I would call it perspiring, but whatever you call it, you don't want to be doing it, and your clothes can help you. Whether you're talking about their bamboo sheets, their all-day tee, or their studio paint collection, you want to get some Cozy Earth stuff as soon as you can. And I'll remind you that if you buy their sleepwear, you get a 100-day sleep trial. You can try them out. If you don't like them, you can return them. And if you keep them, you get their 10-year warranty on all their bedding products. That is a decade of cool and quality sleep. So upgrade your summer sleep. Head to CozyEarth.com. Use the code TWOWAY. You get 40% off. That's not bad. Two-way gets you 40% off best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. Sleep cooler, lounge lighter, stay cozy. Go buy yourself some Cozy Earth products and remember to use the code TWOWAY. All right, let's get to the program now and our fantastic guests. I tried to make Alex Castellanos at least smile during the newscast. Let's get a review from how I did. Alex, forget the news value. Just go for pure Rickles. How did I do?
I'm still shocked that you've admitted yourself to a nursing home, unless they're one of the new sponsors of the program, especially, Mark, when you know we Republicans are about to cut Medicare.
Why do you say it looks like a nursing home? Why do you say that?
Well, the old people walking behind you with their little rolly bags, that's usually a hint.
Oh my God, it's rare that we have Alex Castellanos on the program, and Alex does not have the finest background or the biggest cigar. But today, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. John Allen, where are you?
I'm on the Chesapeake Bay, Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Really, that tree does not look. What kind of tree is that? You have any idea? Oh, the shoulder.
I would be
shoulder.
making it up.
Making it up. All right. Somebody put in the chat, what kind of tree is that?
It's a background tree.
I thought you were like in the Bahamas. And Nomi, welcome back. Nomi Konst, welcome back. Are you a New York City voter?
I'm a New York City voter. I voted early.
Yeah, who'd you vote for? Do you mind saying?
Oh, I will say it, and I am going to make it very clear. I am representing myself and myself alone.
Of course.
I absolutely voted for Zohran Mamdani. That's Mamdani, number one. And I can't remember the order of the rest, but I know that Adrian Adams was on the list, Brad Lander, Scott Stringer. And don't laugh at me. I give him so much respect. Google him. He is a performance artist, but he actually has some real critiques. Paperboy Love Prince made my ballot. I give him so much respect.
Amazing. And who do you think is going to be the Democratic? Who do you think the Democratic nominee is going to be?
I mean, it's so close right now in this final stretch, but it doesn't help that Michael Bloomberg's trying to buy this election, throwing in tens of millions of dollars in the final stretch for Andrew Cuomo, circumnavigating our campaign finance laws. But, Zohran has been able to mobilize. Literally, they have knocked on over 1 million doors in New York. There are 8 million New Yorkers, and we know how low turnout is. So if there's any time when people can overcome propaganda and, a corporate-backed, very corrupt politician, by the way, in Andrew Cuomo, this is the time. So I think there's an opportunity for the left or anybody to the left of Andrew Cuomo's corruption to nomination. And then you go to the general, which is going to be
it's going to be incredible. No matter who the nominee is, the general will be incredible. Let me ask you this. Have you seen any data that tells you your candidate, what's the previous voting history of people who support him in polls? Are they people who voted before, or does he need to turn out a lot of first-time voters to win?
I don't know if we have anything that specific, and if so, someone probably is going to correct me. But there is record turnout right now, which is incredible, and younger turnout, which is great. We've also had a major generational shift. I think we sometimes talk about our voting population today as if it was 10 years ago, and we are becoming a far more progressive party because younger people are just generally more progressive in New York City. That's not all across the board, but definitely with women. So if that fares similarly, I think it could be really great. But you're running against an institution. Cuomo's name ID is 100%, and Zohran he's been in office for just a few years. He's my assemblyman. I think he's done an incredible job getting his name out. But again, you're running against literally millions of dollars from Michael Bloomberg.
Did he win his assembly seat by beating an incumbent, or was it an open seat?
He did. It was an incumbent just by actually a few votes, and somebody who I love as well, my former assemblywoman. It was during the pandemic too. So, it was very tight. Campaigning was very difficult in that primary.
Right. So I'm a big believer in the that famous New Yorker cover about how New Yorkers view the rest of the world. And when I used to work at ABC News, we would laugh about, how big a story, how many people had to die like in an accident to get covered. It would depend on how close you were to New York, and every mile further away you got from New York City, the less was covered. I actually think in the history of my journalism career, This is the first New York story that is undercovered by the national media. This is an incredible story about the two candidates. I think there's only two candidates who can win the Democratic nomination. And Nomi well laid out some of the themes of this race. For this young man, and I'm not being pejorative, he's a young man. Would he be the youngest mayor in New York history?
No, there was actually a mayor who had one term. I forgot his name. Excuse me.
Like a boy mayor.
They called him literally the boy mayor, and
Yeah.
then he went off to battle later in World War I, I believe.
Incredible. I got to read about that. In any event, the fact that this young man, who's largely was unknown and whose record is not, I'll say, standard for someone who might be New York City mayor, and who is so far to the left of, say, Bill de Blasio, you couldn't believe it. This guy could be the nominee. I don't think he will be, but he could be. And the fact that the other choice is someone who was forced out of the gubernatorial slot amid scandal is the other option. It's kind of an incredible story. And as you pointed out, Nomi, the questions of super PAC spending and the nature of the ads. And of course, in the last few days, your candidate's been attacked even by some of his backers for statements he's made about the Middle East. So this is an incredible story, and it's not really being covered that much by national media. All right, let's get to it. John Allen, you first.
Where I am. I'm in the most exotic location with a horrible background.
Where are you? Nursing?
I'm in Greece. I want to just let everybody know.
You're in Greece? You're in Greece? Wow. You voted early. Have the chicken, not the lamb. Common mistake. Actually, have the fish. Have the fish.
I'm Greek.
Where are you? Where are you?
Okay.
Where are you in Greek? Where are you in Greece?
Well, I'm in Athens, but a few hours ago, I was at a wedding, a family friend's wedding in the Leonard Cohen.
I'll tell you, one of the most underrated tourist attractions in the world, the Acropolis. It's incredible.
Don't tell people. They don't need any more people showing up.
Okay, it's incredible. Do you know that all over Europe, they're rebelling against tourists? That's an incredible story too. They're shooting them with water guns. All right, you all tuned in to hear my Larry King random statements, or maybe to talk about the news. Let's talk about the news. John Allen, how do you see the Democratic parties grappling with President Trump and Iran? And what's encouraging, do you think, for the Democrats, and what's discouraging, just in terms of pure politics?
I mean, I hate to I hate to say there's nothing particularly encouraging for the Democrats right now. They are in a place where their best moments are when Donald Trump divides his own party. So you see that with Iran. I don't think that's any great doing of the Democrats. I don't think the Democrats are any less divided on Iran than the Republicans are. We saw it a little bit with immigration when Trump started to come back from we're going to do raids that pick up farmers and hoteliers, and is that the right way to pronounce that? And people at restaurants. So you see Trump in governing dividing his own party, and when the Democrats, you'll know the Democrats have figured out how to get smart about politics again when they start coming up with a unified message on the issues that split Trump's party, so that basically they're on the 2/3 or 3/4 side of that equation. And right now, I don't see them doing that yet. But it's been a good couple weeks for them in terms of Trump dividing his own supporters.
Alex, is the Democratic Party missing an opportunity here? And if so, what would it be if they could unite around one position?
Well, I don't think they're missing an opportunity, because there isn't one. Republicans are divided on this, but it's not core to their identity, and I think it is for the Democrats. Right now, what's growing in the Democratic Party is the pro-Palestinian movement. Muslim vote is growing much faster than the Jewish vote. And they're digital natives. They're younger. They're on college campuses. They vote in primaries. And I think we're going to see that in New York here, where Bloomberg may have spent a lot of money, but he hasn't had a lot of success spending money effectively politically, not the best track record. So I think we're seeing, the Democratic Party imported the war in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas into the Democratic Party here. We saw that during the convention. Now we're seeing them import the war between Iran and Israel here. And I don't know how they heal that division, that there is an opportunity for them. This rips them asunder. So And I think it's good for Republicans because, you know, since Reagan, it's actually since McGovern, Democrats have been the mommy bear party, caring about people, nourishing. Republicans have been the daddy bear, the party of strength. That's never been more true than now. So I think when you have stormy seas like this, people don't want to jump out of the life raft they're on. And I think they cling to the party they're supporting. And I think that's good for Trump.
Dan, I will say that in at least two of the last three Democratic presidential campaign victories, Clinton and Obama, the Democratic nominees very self-consciously tried to get to the hawkish right of their Republican general election opponent. Is this situation offering that opportunity? The governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, this morning in an interview with Politico, published this morning in an interview with Politico, seemed to suggest that President Trump was incompetent in handling this, and as a veteran, perhaps is trying to get to the right of Mr. Bone Spurs. That's what Nomi told me to call him. Is there an opportunity here for the Democrats to say, obviously we don't know how it ends, but just in terms of Trump's conduct, as we said yesterday, if a Democratic president had said signals they were going to attack and then said, let me think about it for 2 weeks, they would have been attacked. Does that opportunity exist?
I don't know if it exists. I mean, while, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama tried to get to the right a little bit, don't forget Howard Dean almost took out John Kerry on being, for the war. And then Barack Obama took out Hillary Clinton primarily because she was for the war, right? Her famous line, we would have never voted if we knew then what we know now, right? But
but Dan, he also got to Hillary's right by saying that he would send American forces into
Afghanistan. Exactly. But I mean, look, it's a little bit of a toxic mix for the party because it's the fact that it's Donald Trump, the commander in chief, right? He does zigzag all over the place, and Democrats want to pull their hair out. It is the whole issue of the party's, support for Israel has been weakening over the last decade. And it's the fact that people don't want to be on the wrong side of this if it goes sideways, and 7 days after this surfaced, or whatever, 2 weeks here, are giving approval to Donald Trump, who the base just loathes. And so I think, Wes Moore is probably, and we saw this morning, Abigail Spanberger, what's her name, Cheryl in New Jersey, the senator from Michigan.
Slotkin.
Yeah. Now people are talking about, okay, they have a military background, like, why not them? So I think for people who are thinking about it, the chance to flex your foreign policy or military credentials, it's an asset to play. But otherwise, I think the party, this is a tough issue for the party.
No, I mean, I think we don't need to get into detail, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think part of why Hillary Clinton was able to beat Bernie Sanders, besides the DNC rigging the thing, was on national security. And I did an interview with Senator Sanders, and I asked him, he's chairman of the Budget Committee, and he said he was for cutting the Pentagon budget. I asked him a simple question in an interview. I said, what would you cut? Which parts of the Pentagon budget are too big? And as a paraphrase of his answer, humana. I don't think he showed true national security credentials. That's my impression. Do you think, if you could turn the clock back, there are things Senator Sanders could have done in 2016 or 2020 to show more strength on national security as to be a credible commander-in-chief?
Nope, she's...
criticisms in 2016 when it came to some aspects of foreign policy. Some areas, especially when it came to Israel in particular, he was very strong on. And I think he got better over time. I mean, I watched it in real time. He got much better on foreign policy. But, with that being said, I think the point was smart. I think most Americans think we spend far too much on our military. Don't know where that money goes. He could have done what like the Fox News does so well, Fox Business especially, where they pick something out of the budget and they're like, well, why are we spending this much money on this, missile program that doesn't even work? Or why do we have so many missiles that we could blow up Jupiter like 5 times over? He could have come up with a lot of lines at the time, and still shown strength and thought. I am not of the belief, it's sort of in my opinion, a tired thought process that we need to have these, strong pro-military, national security, pro-America, alternative to the Republican Party. It didn't work in 2004. It didn't work for Dukakis. It never works. It never works. It never works. I think people care about how much money they have in their pocket, whether or not they can pay for the groceries, whether or not they can pay for their rent. And that, not to take it back to New York, but that's why someone like Zohran Mamdani right now is not running on, they're trying to make it about Israel and Palestine, but that's not what's connecting to voters. He's running on affordability. And if we talk about affordability and we do it well, we win. But if we start talking about all these other things that most people, unless it affects their everyday lives, or unless it's their pet issue or something with their identity, they're not voting on that. There might be money from people who care about that stuff being pushed out there to divide folks. And we've seen that with AIPAC. And we've seen that, with the Republicans when they swift voted John Kerry. But at the end of the day, if the Democrats do their job and they get people out to vote, and they get a lot of people out to vote because their message is about affordability, I think we win. We just don't do that.
Okay, so I don't want to presume I know what Alex and John and maybe Dan think about what you said, but I'm going to just tee it up here, guys. Here's the pitch. Is Nomi right that voters don't need, and I'm paraphrasing, you tell me if I'm wrong, voters don't care if the president, the person they vote for president, is credentialed to be commander-in-chief? Is that overstating your position?
A little bit. I mean, I think they care. It's just not what they're going to the polls for. It's
right.
not.
Okay. So I would argue, if we're dealing with turmoil in the Middle East in the 2028 cycle, that clearing the commander-in-chief bar is, in my experience, absolute. So, Alex, if we're in the midst of international crises in 2028, do you think that a Democrat without clearly clearing that bar is going to be at a disadvantage?
Even if we've put this behind us, and again, I wouldn't underestimate the power and effectiveness of the U.S. military to do these jobs and do them quickly. Even if that were to happen and things were settled down and we go back to that kind of agenda, once this happens, people always, it may not be important if you're running for mayor of New York, but if you're running for president of the United States, the chief executive, yeah, I think that remains important. And in this case, I think it's tougher for the Democrats because it's Donald Trump. It's not George Bush. It's the man they love to hate. So they're going to, whatever Trump is for, they're going to be against, and it's going to be strength versus weakness. And, Democrats could end up looking like they're trying to levitate the Pentagon again and wearing tie-dyed T-shirts back in the 60s. So I don't think this is this is the time it would be smart for the Democrats to say, Donald Trump, look, we may agree or disagree, but most of the world agrees Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And he's our president. And the way you kill somebody politically is not to shoot them from far away, hug them up close, agree with them on some things, and then shove them in the ribs. I don't know why Democrats don't.
John Allen, in 1992, Bill Clinton was running against a war hero veteran. And initially, when his team was making the case of his credentials to be commander-in-chief, amongst the items they listed, I'm not kidding, was that he'd been an intern in college at the Senate and Foreign Relations Committee. So he eventually applied his formidable political skill to take some positions to try to outflank George H.W. Bush on the right and accuse Bush of incompetence on things like Kosovo. Who might run for president for the Democrats, who today, without launching a strategy, clears the commander-in-chief bar, would you say?
Probably more does with the military background, being governor of a state. I mean, I would basically say governors of states largely. I wouldn't say all of the governors, so you'd have to have a list, but I largely think the governors do. I don't think, look, Bill Clinton's a perfect example. You don't need to have military experience. In fact, Bill Clinton spent a lot of time defending himself against the draft dodger charge back then and was elected president of the United States. The thing that I think Nomi is so right about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's imperfect, but to me, it's the best tool for judging a political candidate and if they're talking about the right issues. The right issues are almost always, am I safe? Does my family have shelter? Are prices affordable? And everything else comes next. Obviously, people think that there's a nuke coming from another country that elevates foreign policy, but I would rather be the candidate with the the sort of meat and potatoes advantage and have somebody else be the guy that can have a good debate at the Oxford Society about foreign policy.
All right, Dan, get out your Magic 8 Ball and your Ouija board. I'm going to name a Democrat who might run for president. You tell me today, would the American people say they clear the commander-in-chief hurdle? Okay, just yes or no. Do they clear it today? And Nomi, you're going to play too. Ready? Just yes or no. Wes Moore.
Yes.
Nomi.
Yes.
Mikey Sherrill.
Yes.
Nomi. No. Gretchen Whitmer. Dan.
No.
Nomi. Just today, doesn't say if she runs, she can't address it, but today, does she clear? Yes. Yes. Tell me why. Just because she's a governor?
I think she's a governor and she has name ID. I mean, that's the problem with Cheryl is just too many people don't know who she is yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
but see, I think as a woman, there's a little bit of a higher bar, and at least Mickey Sherrill has military background that she can point to. Whitmer, I mean, she's the head of the National Guard of her state, but other than that, it's tough.
Okay. All right. I'm now switching to John and Alex. Yes or no? Do they clear the bar today? Pete Buttigieg. John.
Yes.
Alex.
Oh,
No. Okay. Why, Alex?
he's wussy. Not gay. He's wussy. He's
Yeah, I
weak.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand. I understand it.
Not a
I
strong
understand what you're
president.
saying. Okay. Governor Shapiro. Governor Shapiro. John Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Why?
So for the lack of foreign policy military experience, he makes up for that with, so A, my governor test, governors generally will clear that bar, but also his foreign policy, such as we know it, is robust and muscular and hawkish. And so that makes up for a lot. Nobody worries about the guy that's, I should say, most people don't worry about the guy that's being too hawkish as being too weak to protect the country, right? That's
Alex, yes or no?
By the way, I think we've had that in our country sometimes.
Yeah. Alex, yes or no? Yes, sir. I hear you.
I agree with John.
He-
He's on he culturally, he's on the Trump side of protecting Israel.
Right. All right. All four of you are doing the final two. Alex first. Gavin Newsom.
No.
Nomi.
Yes.
Okay. John.
Not today.
Not today, even though he's a governor and there's the whole Allen governor rule. Interesting. Dan.
Yeah. No.
No. Interesting. Finally, JD Vance. Alex.
Yes.
Nomi.
Yes.
John.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
John. Dan.
Yes, unfortunately, as Nomi would say.
All right. For the producers of the show, I think Gavin's the news, but maybe I'm wrong. All right. Let's bring in folks to ask questions. Again, as always, peace, love, and understanding should radiate from your fingertips as you ask your question and from your vibrating lips. Extend the presumption of grace to all and tell us where you are and what's on your mind. And we start with Iwa. Is that how you pronounce your name? Iwa. I got it.
Hello.
Welcome in.
Can you hear
Thank
me?
you for joining. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind, please.
I'm in Arlington, Virginia right now. I'm calling because I want to talk about the Israel conflict, obviously, and as well as the Tucker and Ted Cruz interview. I lean more on the Tucker side of this argument as well, and more or less on the Tucker side than the Steve Bannon side, really. But I agree that breaking up the Trump coalition, the number one step to doing that would be to go to war with Iran right now. And if Trump does ultimately make that decision in the future, I think the Trump coalition that it took so long and hard to build in 2024 is just going to be destroyed just that quick. I think JD Vance is number one person to be worried about something like this happening and is thus making moves, I think, to try and tone it back. And I've seen over the past couple of days how that's been happening. And so I feel like if JD wants to preserve his 2028 access to an easy win right now, in my opinion, it would be to not get us into war right now in Iran, just to save the Trump coalition. And I'm interested to hear what Alex thinks about that. As well as the Tucker interview, I think that I love to see what Tucker was doing with Ted Cruz, who almost would have been the Republican candidate in 2016 had it not been for Trump. I think we need to be embarrassing neocons more often, the 15% or less that are still in the Republican Party, at least because of their failures over the past 20, 30 years.
Okay, hold on.
Especially since the start of PNAC, the Project for a New American Century. And
hold on one
until
second.
now-
You said a lot. I want to get Alex to respond. Then I want to ask Nomi something about you said. Alex.
Well, one first about Ted Cruz. I remember the old Bob Dole line when somebody asked him, "Well, why did you hate me as soon as you met me?" It saves time. Ted Cruz has the capacity to unite America in about Ted Cruz. But you know, the the division you're seeing there in the Republican Party, I don't think has a tremendous amount of depth. The Republican Party will rally around this president if he does go to war. And remember, he won't be the one on the front lines. It'll be American fighting men and women. So I wouldn't sell this short. Trump, he is a reluctant warrior. He does not want to go to war. It's bad for business. But when he does, there is no half measure to this. So I wouldn't bet against something strong and something quick. He wants his legacy to be that he set aside this issue and made the world safer. So I don't see that division being lasting long.
No, I mean, maybe the answer to this is obvious, but I'd love to hear your enunciate the answer. Why is that Cruz Tucker interview gotten such traction? Like everybody we know has watched it, at least the most famous part of it. Why has that gotten so much traction?
Has all of the ingredients. Tucker, who is just, you never know, Mr. Populist, the most hateable man in America, Ted Cruz. Neocons, I think that progressives and populists across the country and right-wing, MAGA people all hate neocons. No offense to any neocons that might be listening. So, it was this weird thing where I had a text message on a text chain from somebody who used to work in the Obama administration, who knows Ted Cruz, or excuse me, who knows Tucker Carlson, as do I, and was saying, is Tucker Carlson going to save our country? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So it also broke people's minds a little bit. I'm like, what's going on? And then, they're thinking like 18-dimensional chess. Like, what's he really up to? Is he, really there to divide the right? And I'm like, he's just Tucker. He's a populist. This is his brand. He is thinking, I am Tucker Carlson. I have my brand. My dad is like a consultant for Russia, or was a consultant for Putin or something at one point. Like, he's not pro-America. And as long as you're looking at it from that perspective, I think it's great if some other force wants to divide the Republican Party, and they have a long-term goal to do so, but at the expense of whom? And so, I think it was a fascinating experience, but I think it's deeply concerning. I think there's a little bit of wag the dog happening with Donald Trump right now. He wanted to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. That didn't work out. He's been very unsuccessful with Israel and Gaza. So is this his next goal, to take on Iran? I don't know. And I think that so many of us have been reliving the Bush era and weapons of mass destruction. And I think that Tucker Carlson was capitalizing off of that same rhetoric from back then.
Questions. Or to Nomi's point, which I think is dead on, Ted Cruz still wants to run for president.
Yeah.
And he will. And he won't make it again, one, because of his personality, but two, because he represents what used to be the dominant wing of the Republican Party, but it is no longer that. The populist wing is. So I think Nomi's exactly right.
John Allen, go ahead. Then I want to ask you a question, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to zoom back real quick here, because this entire debate is, like, at some level is a straw man debate, in that we've basically got an argument that the U.S. shouldn't put ground troops into Iran. Like, that's what I keep hearing. This is the safe space for on the right, is it's okay as long as we don't put ground troops. Nobody's putting ground troops in Iran. I mean, Israel might put a few ground troops in Iran, but nobody's conquered Persia. Like, that doesn't happen. That's like going into Afghanistan times 100. So I feel like when you're listening to the debate over this stuff, it's important to remember that what we're really talking about is, does the United States back Israel? Does it assist Israel? Does it use a bunker buster? But this is long distance. This is not like Afghanistan or Iraq. And I understand why people see a slippery slope there. But to get to the slippery slope of Americans invading Iran, I don't even have a way to process that.
Yeah, John.
Well,
let me
but
ask you,
I do
Go ahead,
think
Dan.
that spending money overseas divides the right? I mean, that's been the rail against the Ukraine war. You've spent $250 billion when it should be spent at home. And that's where I think, yes, all we're going to do is use air power to bomb them. But the question always comes back to then, who is responsible for ensuring Iran doesn't fall into, some hellhole that's worse than today? The Israelis can't do it alone. So it's either going to have to be some of our dollars or some sort of support to maintain that Iran doesn't fall apart. That's where I think the right and everybody is, appropriately nervous.
I would look at it just slightly differently. I think John is saying that, look, I mean, the bad thing about having your nuclear facilities underneath a mountain is that it's easy to close them. It's easy to make it hard to get out of. And I think if the president does that, it won't take long. It will be quick. And as far as being in worse situation than it is now, they're trying to kill us. They're funding terrorism all over the world. How does that get worse? You can't fall off the floor.
A lot of mountains in the Middle East have back doors, Alex. John Allen, I want to ask you about MAGA. Someone this morning, I think it was Bannon maybe, was quoted basically saying, we can take intramural fights. We've been through a lot. And I find it a remarkable feature of the MAGA movement. You see Bannon, a government official, attacking other government officials in personal terms. If that had happened in the Biden White House or the Obama White House, there would have been, a massive controversy. Instead, it's just a day that ends in Y. So if I'm right, if Bannon's right, what is it about the MAGA movement that makes them so resilient to vicious intramural attacks?
Well, they like fighting. I mean, one of the reasons Donald Trump is president of the United States for a second time is people think that he will fight, right? Like all of the stuff, even when he loses an argument with somebody, the fact that he goes in there and brawls is a big part of his success, a big part of his appeal. The other thing I would say about that is it's fascinating to watch all of the real public policy debate right now in the country effectively going on intramurally on the right.
Yeah.
There's the fight over taxes, fight over immigration, fight over Iran, like all of it. There's this very robust, serious policy discussion going on with a whole lot of compound modifier profanities being thrown.
Yeah. Let me ask the two Democrats this question. And I don't want this to be a personal thing, just a reality. Schumer and Jeffries were both said to be great inside players, like super good inside players and understand the caucuses and all that. I think this is the latest thing on which, as Ro Khanna said about Schumer in an interview yesterday, I just think they're nowhere. They don't seem to be unifying the party. They don't seem to be presenting a counterpoint to the president. Am I right that this is another indication that they don't really have the capacity to lead their caucuses to a unified, strong position? Dan.
Yes, because this is the perfect example of what both of them face. One from Queens, one from Brooklyn. They're both moderates. And so they are.
They're both from Brooklyn.
Well, Hakeem, part of his district kind of cuts up a little bit, but
he lives in Brooklyn.
He does. But they both sit there in fear of the base, right? Schumer's staring at AOC and is worried about, what is she going to say if he comes out, he's too pro-Israel. Hakeem needs her to become speaker someday. And so it's another issue where they don't want to come out. They don't want to lead the party in either direction because they're afraid of splitting it. And so they don't do anything. And that's where, the base screams, the moderates cry, and we go around in a circle.
Nomi, am I being too hard on your congressional leaders?
Senator Schumer, he's going to go cry. No, I mean, this is the frustration that I think the left has with them. They put, if you want to see them take on leadership and really flex their muscles, it's by going after the left. They never use that strength that they use against anybody on the left of Nancy Pelosi against Republicans. I think that's what we want to see in our leaders. Use that strength. We know they have it in them. We've seen it. Just could you direct it towards doing something about MAGA? My favorite was Senator Schumer last week being like, oh my God, what Donald Trump is doing is horrible. Something needs to be done in a press conference. So of course that turned into a meme. And of course the Democratic Party was angry. And of course that feeds more speculation of, whether it's AOC or somebody else that's going to challenge him. It's not good. It's not a good look. In times of crisis, you need strong leaders. And if anything, even if they can't keep everybody together inside, at least externally put off some sort of message that makes it makes people feel like you're a leader. And I have the same criticism of Ken Martin. I think he's doing a really good job internally. His comms game is really weak. He needs to go out there and show everybody that he's a different kind of DNC chair. And that's what Hakeem Jeffries needs to do. Instead, we're relying on Nancy Pelosi, who just had hip surgery to keep everybody together.
Ken Martin should swap you in for that lady who's hosting their nightly show, because she's not breaking 1,000. I don't know. Dan, do you remember her name?
No,
I'd never heard of her. I'd never heard of her, but you draw more than 1,000 people just by showing up.
I used to have a YouTube show, so I have a built-in infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. Jonathan, welcome in. Jonathan, I can tell you right now, he's a fan of legacy sports franchises. Welcome in. Where are you calling us from today? Pacers fan, of course.
Calling from Berlin. I'm your Hoosier in Berlin.
Hoosier in Berlin. Do they appreciate
Berlin?
Do they appreciate Hoosier values in Berlin?
I think so. I think everyone appreciates Hoosier values.
I do too. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, I have a question about the Iran conflict, and I wanted your take regarding Trump's headspace. Given that I saw a quote, and a quote that Jared Kushner said, I believe last year. He said something that Trump said to him often when talking about Iran. He said, Iran has never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. Now, Kushner said Trump used to say this often. And I just wanted your general take, given this, on where you think, how you think Trump thinks about Iran, given that. And then one more thing, I know someone said war is bad for business, but Iran getting a nuke in the Middle East is obviously worse for business.
Yes,
it goes
sir.
directly against Trump's his goal in the Middle East of peaceful economic development, where there's now a nuclear arms race.
Well said. All right, who wants to take on one or both of those? Anybody? Never lost a war, never won a war, never lost a negotiation?
Well, that is Trump's. I don't know if that's true. My history is.
Well, I don't know if it's true, but that's what Trump apparently said.
All right,
if you're a weaker power negotiating, up against a stronger power, talk as long as you can.
Jonathan, I'm gonna deflect your question because I get no media takers. You're too young. Have you to know this, but maybe you do from YouTube. Do you know what Stump the Band is? You ever heard that? Stump the Band?
I have not.
So on the Tonight Show, used to be hosted by a guy named Johnny Carson. They had a feature called Stump the Band. A member of the audience would name a song, and the band would try to play it. And they wouldn't know the song, and they wouldn't really try to play it. They'd play some jokey thing that had funny lyrics that they made up on the fly. That's improv. So you've stumped the band. So congratulations, Ed. Tell him what he's won. And then the other thing is, there's a trivia question. Whoever gets it right wins an LA Dodgers cap. The one on Jonathan said, what did I'm trying to remember who the president was. There was a president, that could be part of the question, who said something about the Washington Senators. Know what I'm talking about? I've ruined the whole thing. Never mind.
Wait,
Forget
I know.
It was first in war, last in peace. First in peace, last in war, first in peace, and last in the American League. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's first in war, first in peace, last in the American League.
Yeah, first in war, first peace. And who said that? Eisenhower?
Mark, now we know why you're in the nursing home. A question, is Chuck Schumer there with you? That may explain why he has so little energy.
Yeah. Jonathan, you asked two reasonable and good questions, but you stumped the band. Thank you very much. Pacers in 7. All right. Let's go to Haley to close the week. Haley, tell folks a little bit about yourself, because we've got a lot of new people on tonight.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've been on quite a lot lately. I'm Israeli American. Kind of lived half my life in Israel, half my life in the States, New York City. Nomi,
Close us out. Sorry, go ahead.
I like you a lot, Nomi. I'm kind of horrified of the Mamdani election, especially after his most recent remarks comparing the Intifada to Warsaw Ghetto. I don't know if anybody heard those, but that's his latest thing here. I wanted to go back to a little bit of what you guys are saying this week. because I disagree, which is strange because I usually agree with everything you guys say. But I disagree with what you guys think that Israel is doing regime change. I don't think they are. I think that they welcome it and they're trying to push the Iranian people to rise up on their own. But I think that, first of all, I think the Ayatollah himself is a sitting duck. He's 86 years old. So it really doesn't matter if he survives this or not, because whoever's going to come is just going to take his place, if it's his son or if it's someone else. So I don't think Israel's doing regime change because I don't think they want to, I don't think they want to risk the standing that they still have left in the world, because they have, I mean, America's their only friend right now. I also think that there is a big thing missing in this debate. The fact that I think I said this before during this week, that the Islamic Republic is an Islamic regime. They want to revolutionize their Sharia law across the entire world, and I don't think that it's being mentioned. I think that people are treating them as a legitimate government that has the capacity and the want to defend their people, and I see it on the media, and it's just really a shame that it's not being depicted and being talked about in that way, because regardless of the Ayatollah, there's still the mullahs, there's still the clerics, there's still everybody there, and it needs to be said and mentioned a million times. And what do you guys think about that?
All right, let's go round robin on regime change. Is the Israeli government covertly actually trying to eliminate the current government of Iran? Nomi.
Covertly? No.
Yeah, no. Dan.
Yes.
John.
And they've said so.
Yeah, no, I think regime change is part of it, but like I would just say what they are definitely doing is trying to destabilize the regime. So whoever is at a negotiating table is weaker, whether it's this regime or the next.
Alex?
I agree with Haley. No, but they'd be happy if it worked out that way.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this question. And Haley, you can play
Mark,
too.
do you think they're trying to destabilize, or they're trying to overthrow the government?
I'm told the show is over. I'm sorry. There's no time. I think that they are prepared to set in motion a very detailed plan to overthrow the government. That's what I think. Does the Israeli government have a list of people they'd like to see in the new government? Does that list exist? Iranians who they'd like to see in the new government? Alex?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Nomi?
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, it'd be negligence not to. Yep.
Haley? No further questions. Haley, thank you. Have a good weekend. Grateful to you for being part of our community, and grateful to Nomi and Alex and John and Dan for coming in today. Very grateful to you all. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Nomi, have the fish. I know you told me I was Greek-splaining, but
I want to know if she's going back to the wedding now.
No. It ended last night. That's why I'm wide awake. I'm totally jet lagged.
All right. Well, thank you all for making time amidst your beginning of your weekend. Very grateful to you. Sean, Dan, and I will be back Monday morning at 9 a.m. We may see over the weekend if there's a international incident that warrants live breaking news two-way coverage. Dan and I and others will spring into action. And don't forget on Tuesday, in addition to all the programs you're used to, don't forget Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern time, our second episode of Cancer Decoded will be on. So please join us for that program on Tuesday. Thank you very much to everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you no later than Monday, 9 a.m. Dan, thank you.
Yep.